Welcome to my first album review, album discussion. I want to do this once a week with newer releases, whether it's a good album, in my opinion, whether it's a bad album, in my opinion, or maybe it's an album I think warrants a good discussion. So I think the best place to start is to talk about Trippie Redd's Trip at Night. Short synopsis of what I think of Trippie: I think he's incredibly talented. I think he can carry a project on his own. I think he is a great vocalist, not in the way of like being a skillful vocalist, but he has the passion and the emotion and the rawness of his vocals perfectly comes together along with his production. And I like the variety. He can do basically anything he wants because he can rap, he can sing, he can create a catchy hook, and he can throw some decent lyrics into his content. Life's a Trip's a good example. A Love Letter to You 3 is a good example as well. But as we get into Trip at Night, it seems that we're starting to notice a bit of a problem. And the biggest problem with this album for me is that it just sounds too clean. What I mean by that is the vocals. As I said before, you have Life's a Trip, which is probably one of my favorite Trippie albums, to be honest, because there is raw energy, there is raw emotion, there is passion there, and the lyrical content really goes well together with that, even though it's kind of deeper content. And I know you don't have to go deep all the time. Sometimes you want to step out of that zone because it can be quite tiring. But the vocals that he has alongside with the content and the production in the middle just makes a perfect combination. With this, however, there's none of that raw emotion in the content or in the lyrics or in the performance. I think now it's being replaced, especially on this album, with a lot of references. You get a lot of video game references. You get a lot of pop culture references. You also get a lot of Dragon Ball references. You can see Supercell as an example of that, which I think is a cool kind of novelty track, in my opinion. But we're not getting these deeper moments from Trippie, or these moments of like reflecting, or these moments of talking about these deeper issues. We are now just getting either braggadocious tracks, which is very typical for the trap genre and hip hop, but it just sounds too processed and clean with the vocals. And it really waters down what makes Trippie incredibly special with his vocal performance. If you take the raw energy of a vocalist like Trippie Redd and you put it through a mixing and mastering system to the point where you get none of the kind of nice quirky details, the elongated moans, and these very special kind of attributes to Trippie's voice, it just starts to sound like everybody else. And that's one of my bigger problems with this album, is that it doesn't have the personality of Trippie Redd in the album. Now, the next part that I don't really take a liking to is the production, but it's not the production itself. I love hyperpop. I am a huge fan of Underscores and 100 gecs. I'm very familiar with this hyper pop and hyper trap kind of genre where it's just balls to the wall, just going insane for a decent bit of the track list. The difference is, though, is that in these hyper pop albums, you have these moments of calm down, you have these moments of being able just to chill out and just enjoy the experience and catch a breath. With Trip at Night, I feel it's too much of this balls to the wall insanity. It's all coming at you at once, and it goes for a very long time throughout the track list, and there's only a couple of moments where you get these kind of times where you can kind of calm down and just chill. One of the examples is the run of Spacetime, Baki, and iPhone. That's a decent bit of time where there's a little bit of slowdown and you can kind of catch your breath and you can kind of see a little bit of variety and difference as well. You can also look at Rich MF with Lil Durk and Polo G as a good example of some kind of variety in the album. That's the problem, though. The rest of the album is all balls to the wall, where it causes this problem where everything is starting to mend into one. And with that, you're not getting any distinct moments or distinct kind of times where it will stick out to you because everything is starting to sound the same. Because when you have like these crazy tracks back to back to back to back to back to back, it's just going to start forming into one song. Especially when you have these crazy high synths and kind of the same subgenre of hypertrap, it's all going to start mending into one another. So I feel that's one of the bigger problems as well, is that it all is just too crazy to the point where it all sounds the same. I do want to talk about some positives though. When this works, this hypertrap sound works, it creates some really cool moments. I still love Miss the Rage. Probably one of my favorite singles of the year. It's just a perfectly made song. Even though Playboi Carti, his verse gets a little bit offbeat, I think the instrumental and the vocal performances in that particular song really mesh well. And that's what I would kind of hope this album would have been. We also get a really cool beat switch in Supernatural, where it gets really aggressive, it gets really in your face, the bass gets incredibly hard, and it really that's one of the moments where it just sticks out to you like a sore thumb. It's like, this is a cool moment. This is what Trip at Night should have been, these really cool moments. Another good track is Matt Hardy 999 with Juice WRLD. There is the little bit of that hypertrap sound, but there comes a moment in the track where everything fades out and we just get like this kind of organ kind of sound, and we just have Trippy and Juice trading bars and going off. It sounds like a freestyle, but it's this really cool moment where it's kind of like heartwarming in a way, because you get to hear the freestyling Trippy that you hear on like Tim Westwood and all this kind of stuff. It really goes back to those times for me. And it just allows two rappers just to freestyle and just enjoy rapping. Really cool moment in the track, and that goes till the end. So that's a really cool moment. I also really like the first two tracks, where you have Molly Hart and you have MP5. Molly Hart is probably the catchiest song here, and the hook on that gets stuck in my head at least once a day in a good way. And we also have Rich MF again with Polo G and Lil Durk, where we do have this kind of break from like this hyper trap sound kind of, and it goes more into the lane of a Lil Durk or a Polo G song. But Trippy is actually one of the better standout people on this song. He brings a really cool hook, but both of the rappers did show up. I'm not a huge fan of Polo G or Lil Durk, even though Lil Durk is a lot better as a feature artist, but they both bring their sound and they bring it really well here. The other features I can talk about, X doesn't really sound the greatest on Danny Phantom. I don't know if he really fits this hypertrap sound all that well, but it's a cool feature nonetheless. The Drake feature I'm kind of disappointed by, even though it's probably going to be the most talked about thing from this album. I'm pretty disappointed by it. There's a lot of empty time in the performances. There's a lot of empty space. There is some corny bars there. Of course, those shots at Kanye and Pusha T. But in general, that feature was not the greatest from Drake. I don't know why you would take this opportunity on this album to take shots at Drake. I think it's really odd to take shots at Drake on a Trippie Redd album. But I guess business is business and you're trying to get your name up out there. And I guess it's a newer album, so like it's definitely in the people's conversations. You want to be in that conversation. There's a Sofego feature in MP5. That was a good melodic feature. So the features, pretty decent. Some were kind of misses, some were kind of just didn't fit. But overall, it worked for kind of like half the part. So my general view of this album is that there is genuine good moments here, but it's just too much noise, if you know what I mean. There's just too much of this one sound coming together to the point where you can't pick out distinct tracks. I was able to, because I listened to it numerous times, but I think this album is going to work best if you take 4 to 5 tracks. If you take 4 or 5 tracks from this album and put it onto your playlists, you pick out 4 or 5 of your favorite moments, because all of it's going to sound the same. To me personally, that's what it's going to be like to me. But I'm going to take 4 to 5 of these tracks and I'm going to put them on playlists, and I'll be able to listen to them as much as I want. And I'll love them because they are taken away from the album, so that way in a playlist setting they're a little bit more distinct and they're able to stand out on their own. And I think this hyper trap kind of sound is a very cool wave, and I think it's something you definitely can expand upon. But I think there needs to be more variety in the album next time for these moments to stand out. I think instead of like having pretty much 16 to 15 tracks going in this hyper trap sound, I think more something like 4 or 5 would work best, because that would give them their moments to stand out, and that allows you more time to do something else. I don't know if this is going to be a continuing theme with Trippy's music, if we're going in this hyper trap sound. I don't think so. But if you're going to take this route again, I think just picking 3 or 4 to 5 of these tracks and putting them on an album will allow this sound and this atmosphere to stand out a lot more. I don't give scores on albums. I find giving scores on albums and doing the reviews in that score format, I find it really sticks with you and it kind of pigeonholes you to that score. Not to mention, I don't want to be giving, like, for example, if Kendrick's album, like, I'll give the Fantano example. If Damn is a 7 and Lil Pump is a 7, like, you start to get a lot of questions. And I know it's definitely just an enjoyability thing, but I just think just talking about my thoughts on it and just kind of having the discussion like this is probably the best way to do it. So I'll be doing this once a week. Hopefully Donda drops and I can do it with that. But if it doesn't, I definitely have Westside Gunn I'm going to be doing next week. So this is Sonic Spill. This is my review / discussion of Trip at Night. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like. Subscribe if you want. And I'll catch y'all later. Peace.